Welcome to Hit Me With Your Best Pint podcast. Today's episode features Shawn Adams up at Akronym Brewing Company. Doing this introduction to apologize a little bit. The audio quality is not great. I think there was just a little bit too much gain on the microphones, and so it made for some peaks that were not awesome. I tried to clean it up a bit so we can still listen to it, and we didn't have to try to go re-record the episode. So hopefully you can get through it. It was a good time. Shawn's a great guy making great beer, and cheers and enjoy. Hello, this is the Hit Me With Your Best Pint podcast. We are here at Akronym Brewing Company today with Shawn Adams, brewmaster here for Akronym. How you doing, Shawn?
Good. How are you, Jake? Good
man.
to see you, buddy.
Fuck yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a while since I've been up this way and got a decent hang.
Yeah.
So we're up here today. We're in Akron, right on Market Street.
Yep.
Right downtown.
Sunny downtown Akron.
Well, not today, but
yeah, right.
I know you guys have a second location in Medina now, right?
Yep. Yeah, we just got that going in the end of 22.
Yeah.
So we got that open.
So it's been there for a little over a year now.
Yeah.
How's everything going there?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. We got the road open. So road closures, if you guys don't know, downtown, we had lots of construction down here for numbers of years, and then that followed us out to Medina, so they were working on 18 out there too, but that's open now. So if you guys don't know where we're at out there, so we're in the Bueller's Plaza right on 18, after be west of 71,
Gotcha.
Before you get into Medina proper.
Yeah. So how long's this location been open?
So we opened in 2018 here, so we're going to have our six-year anniversary in June.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Moving along.
Yeah.
Next question is, what got you into brewing beer? Because I know you were a member of Saws for a long time before you opened this spot up, and
yeah. So we were home brewing like all the way back in like 2009, maybe we started. So actually, one of the guys was our buddy that got us started. His name's Ed. And we're still friends with him. We went to college together. So Josh and I and Ed were home brewing together at Ed's house. He actually went to the Grape and took the class and did the, partial mash home brewing.
Shout out to the Grape and Granary.
Yeah,
I
right?
used to drive up there from Alliance all the time to get ingredients back when I was still home brewing.
Still a great home brew shop.
Yeah.
So, we did that. And we would just brew once in a while in the winter there for a while. Then we got about 2012 or so, we got more into it, and we got the idea that we may open a brewery.
Yeah.
So then we got pretty serious, and we were brewing, I think the last year we brewed 100 batches before we opened. The last year when we were home brewing, it's probably almost at the maximum amount you could make legally at the time, probably. We were right up against that.
In that limit, and you're like, let me give this away to friends.
Yeah. So we had that Brew Magic, which is a pretty fancy for a home brew setup. So that's what we ended up getting around 2012 and doing a bunch of brewing on that. And then actually we have that as our pilot system out in Medina right now. So we still have that piece of equipment that kind of got us all into this.
That's what I started on out at Maze.
Right, I think I knew that.
Kind of when I first got out there, they wanted to just get, as like proof of concept, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If they wanted to run a brewery out there, they bought one of those little guys, and so that's why I started. I worked on that thing for a year and a half straight. I was brewing 3 times a day.
Man,
it was nuts, and
it had to be crazy because
how was out there collecting dust?
How would you run? Though you guys had to run out of beer, right? Was it?
We only had. I think at the beginning, I think it was only. We were only doing maybe 4 or 5 beers as an offering, just at the start, because it was
that's
way too much for on that little guy.
Yeah,
basically, it's you could knock out a barrel a day if you're really going for it.
Yep,
and that's what you were turning around, and so it was super labor intensive.
Yeah,
and a lot of times it was funny because just like you at the time, I was still working a full-time fire department job.
Yeah.
And so I would get off shift from the fire department, go in the morning, and
triple batch
for the next couple of days, then go back to the fire department, work shift, and then come back out and do it all over again.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it was the winemaker out there, Todd, would start the first batch in the morning, mash in the first batch,
nice,
get that going. I'd get out there a little bit later and finish that one up, and then do the next couple of batches and roll. So it was interesting times
You get really, so the thing that I did like and still love about homebrewing is the repetition and the chance to change things and experiment. And I think you get really good at brewing from all the reps on it.
Yeah, because
it's like anything else, you know.
Once you're on a bigger system, the risks become greater
Right.
when you have a concept in your mind of,
Right.
like, I want to do this thing, but now I'm doing it on a, for me, 15 barrels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, oh, I have confidence now on kind of how things are going to turn out when I do that. At the beginning, I did not.
Right.
And it was like, I hope this works out, and I hope it sells okay. And there's like things you start to figure out at the beginning to go. But now it's kind of, if I'm working a new beer, I basically know what to expect out of my equipment.
Yeah, and it's like before we got the Medina location, we're doing some pilot batches out there. We did a couple here on the Brew Magic, but like really, like then you get enough turns on it, you can kind of hit. You can at least come pretty close. You can always tweak it, the next batch or something. But yeah, same thing.
Yeah, but it does kind of take away a little bit of the flexibility of what we used to do brewing at home, where you're just like you get a wild hair up your ass, and you're like, I want to see what bacon does in a beer.
Right.
I know it's going to kill the head retention, but let's see what happens flavor-wise.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a grease slick when I try it?
Right.
And so, there are things that you're willing to experiment with when you're messing around at home that you're not necessarily willing to roll the dice on.
Yeah. It's a lot of beer to dump when you have to dump a whole 10 or 15 barrel batch.
Right. So, Big Eclipse is coming on Monday. Yes. Are you guys open?
Yeah, we're open both spots, and we're gonna do. We got a flight going, so it goes from the flight is light to dark.
Ah, that's fun.
So that was a good idea. Actually, Josh came up with that. My partner, one of the partners. So, it'll be cool. I can't wait to see. I don't know how it's gonna go. I mean, who knows, right? It's been 100 and some years since
it's a mystery because you get all these for like, oh man, everything's gonna be slammed.
Everybody's gonna come all over, right?
Because you're in the area. There's gonna be totality.
Yeah, who knows, right?
Who knows? I don't know. We're doing a party out at Maze too, and so I'm really curious to see kind of what the turnout looks like and how crazy it. I'm excited to see it. I remember there being a partial solar eclipse or whatever. We were outside of totality when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too. I remember that.
I remember that going on, but this is like the first one where, as an adult, you're like, hey, you're going to get like this crazy event that's like once every 300 years or whatever. And you get this coverage. And so they're expecting people to come in. I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows.
Yeah, I don't. They said that Cleveland is they think it's going to be super busy there. I don't know what's.
I imagine Cleveland, Akron, any of the bigger cities, I think are probably going to be pretty busy. Some of the others outside of that, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, about. We'll see, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, what type of brewery do you guys see yourselves as? Kind of what's your bread and butter as far as beer goes?
Well, so. We used to, when we opened up, our idea was, based as home brewers, we like to make a lot of different styles. We're pretty traditional. We don't do a lot of, the catchiest beers or whatever. Yeah. New, right. Not, I don't want to say it that way, really, but
you're not on the hype train.
Yeah, I mean, we try to make beer-flavored beer, I would say, for the most part.
Right, yeah.
But we've kind of got our niche, I would say. It takes a lot of time, to figure out what people want.
Yeah, you have to figure out your area and who your customers are.
Yep.
And then try to do what you can to make what's going to sell to those customers.
Yep, exactly. So we've got to the point where, and I'm real happy about this, so we opened up with lagers back in 2018. But, craft lager wasn't, if you can think back to then, it wasn't a big deal then at all, really. Because, it just wasn't. And now lager's been the most popular style since it was invented in the early 1800s.
Right.
So, we're happy to say that we're on that train now where we're running 3 lagers all year. And then we usually have 4 to 5 to 6 lagers on at any given time. So I think so. We're kind of split now. So this is what our customers have told us basically is they like lagers that are easy to drink, and then the other side of it's our hoppy beer, and that's kind of where we're at. It's unfortunate. I know you're a big fan of Belgian beer, as I am, and my wife is too. It's hard to make them. They don't sell very well for us.
Yeah, and that's
so we don't make as many as those as we did when we started out.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the, I would say, tragedy.
Yeah.
Of a lot of
I think it is. Yeah.
Beer right now is that there are those styles, specifically like Belgian styles that it takes a little while to develop a palate for, because I wasn't in love with Belgian beer right away.
Sure.
It took me a little bit of time to develop a palate for it and understand, kind of what was going on in those beers, why they were the way they were, and then also developing a palate for them. And that's tough, I guess, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Even though, I feel like now it really shouldn't be, especially considering what else is out there now.
Right.
Like, it's way easier to develop a palate for the nuances of Belgian yeast fermented beers versus, a lot of the sour beers that are available.
Sure.
And there's a lot of nuance in Belgian beer that I feel like a lot of Americans are missing out on.
Yeah.
Because the recipes themselves tend to be pretty simplistic.
They are, yeah.
But the fermentation character gives it this complexity that, it's tough to explain to a lot of people where, all that yeast is driving all that, like, phenol and ester character.
Yeah. And that's 90% of the flavor on most of those.
And that's, you might have a beer, and that's, I made Saison for many years that was strictly just, like, Pilsner malt and Kent Golding hops.
Yeah.
But because of the way it was fermented and the yeast it was fermented with, the nuance of character of that beer was astounding, because it's, you pick up pear, apple,
plum,
pepper, all this stuff, banana sometimes, these things that, obviously aren't going into the beer, but you get those flavors, and it's strictly derived from the fermentation character from that yeast. And I wish more people kind of got on board with it, understood what was going into those beers, and understood why they were delicious. And,
and
because it is a tough sell.
And they're dry, which makes them pretty drinkable, which is great too.
That's a lot of the idea behind them. Was a lot of these beers were made for farm workers in the summertime, and it's like, hey, you need something relatively refreshing after a hard day's work, and the water wasn't particularly clean or reliable to drink. And a lot of beautiful beer styles coming out of that area that I think still, maybe someday it'll catch on a little more. And we'll brew a little more Belgian beer, but.
Yeah, so we still have Orval in the bottles out in Medina. So if you guys are looking for one, try that out. It's one of my all-time favorite beers, so that's why we have it. And
it's great, especially if you have an affinity for hops. Orval is great. It's the dry hopped. Belgian
beer.
pale ale, basically with a little bit of Brett. A little weird. And I don't even love Brett a lot of the time, but that's a beer that
works.
It presents it beautifully, where it's not too much. Brett can be, if you let it really, foment, can get a little like gym locker room, crazy, funky,
sweaty.
But that's not what's going on in that beer. It's like just enough to kind of complement everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Then so back to kind of what we're doing now. So we do a lot of lager. I'm real proud that we've been able to get to that, and we're getting people to buy it more and more, which is great for us. And then I love lager beer. And then the other side's our IPAs. So, and IPA is the most popular craft style, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the beer we've got today is an IPA. You guys are...
This is our new year-round. Year-round, it's a West Coast style. It's a clear IPA in this day and age. It's crazy, but we like it. So West Coast IPA.
It's the only kind of IPA I'm doing, Shawn.
I know. That's why we're drinking it. So Hose Handler is the name of it. It's ode to the fireman. That's
Yes.
me. So and Jake too.
Yeah.
So we handle all of the hoses in the brewery and on the fire ground. So there you go. There's the name. But yeah, so it's a West Coast IPA, 7.4%, about 65, 70 IBU. So it's got some of that bitterness to make it a West Coast and nice hop character. It's got Nelson Sauvin in it, which is a really awesome hop, and it's finally affordable enough that we can use it.
And it was, I mean, big aroma on this beer. Like, that was the first thing I noticed when I put it up to, like, my nose. It just, like, jumps out of the glass with aroma. It is, like, super aromatic, and that's you were saying Nelson Sauvin. What are the other? Mosaic, yes.
And Hallertau Blanc, or kind of those hops. So the concept behind it was kind of that kind of white wine tropical fruit character, and we're trying to push that out there. And I think those hops do it amazingly. It's I love it.
Yeah, I mean, typically you get a lot of like white grape and stuff out of those hops, but here I'm finding it like way more tropical. On the nose and the palate. Like,
I think that
it's big, like pineapple. Like, I mean, big time, kind of like pineapple, guava, mango.
Yeah, you get some of the mango. The Nelson kind of pushes that. It'll change a little bit when it gets a little warmer, and you'll get some of that white wine character. But it's very kind of in the background. But yeah, it's big, juicy tropical fruit kind of bomb.
Yeah, that is absolutely lovely. We can talk about kind of like what's special about IPA and why you guys love that style here.
So I think one of the things we're American brewers, and I think like it shouldn't be lost on us that we have like the best hops in the world, like in the U.S., grown in the U.S. So like I think that's a big consideration. Our malting program, malting in the U.S. is made for making like industrial lager, but it also makes really dry West Coast IPAs. Yeah. So this has got U.S. Pilsner malt in it. Mostly, that's like 99%. It's got a little bit of rye in it, and that's it, really. So straightforward recipe, but like you said, like you get all of it's derived from the hops. I mean, just that hop character.
It is. I mean, when you take a sip of that, like most of what you're getting is like a punch in the nose and mouth of just like that tropical hop character.
Yeah, our goal is like whenever you pour this or open a can, you should be able to smell it from standing up, like far away from the beer. So you want that kind of aromatic, and I think that's what people are looking for too when they want to drink an IPA. You want that nice aroma. So I mean, and that bitterness is there to kind of makes you want to take another sip.
Yeah,
it's dry, so it finishes dry. It's a American ale yeast on it, so it's super clean, neutral ale yeast
for sure. So you were hinting on, is American Pilsner, is this Great Western? Is this the Idaho?
Great Western Premium Pils.
Yeah, Premium Pils. All right, yeah.
Yes,
I know. I've used some of their Idaho.
The Idaho. Yeah, pure Idaho.
Pure Idaho
nice.
malts. During the pandemic times when getting my normal German Pilsner malt was very difficult and expensive for a little bit of time there, I talked to Jeff,
who
we collaborated with on the Czech 1, 2, 3, and he put me onto the Great Western, Idaho, pure Idaho malts as a sub, and it's subbed beautifully, just beautifully. That's a great Pilsner malt. And like some of the stuff that Great Western's making is just chef's kiss. Fantastic if you're looking for a domestic malt. A lot of the time.
Yeah, so those work great. Then so the other side of it, like you said, we like to use kind of the authentic ingredients if we can for like continental style lagers. So we're either using, depending on the style, we're using German Pils or German malts or Czech malts, and we use Czech malts in our Czech Pils and our Czech, the frontline Czech Amber. It's all it's Czechoslovakian malt. So, and I think it's a little less modified, and so our brew house is set up to do concoction mashing. So we planned that when we were going to make lager, so we're set up to do that, and we do that on our lagers. So. I think these things are working out, and I think it's those subtle things like that make the beer great, push it from average to great.
I guess you're the first person I've had on that talks about decoction mashing. So I guess we can kind of hint on what's the advantage there of doing a decoction versus a single infusion, especially on like a well-modified grain.
Yeah, so like again, so we try to use the less modified grain in on our lagers. So like the Czech malt, it's I forget the carbach on it, but like the index, it's substantially lower than the U.S. malt comparison. Like we were talking about that Great Western Pils, it'll probably convert instantly in an infusion mash almost because it's so modified. So I think you get some more flavor and you get more malt character from the under modified malt with the decoction mash. The decoction, if you guys don't know, is boiling the mash. So we'll do either anywhere from we've done from 1 to 3 decoctions depending on the beer. The Czech Amber is a double decoction. We just did a Helles that's a double decoction on that. So yeah, so I think you get a little more out of it. Just that little bit more round flavor, a little more of the melanoidin action that you get there.
A little bit of touch more roundness on the malt, I feel like. When I have those beers that people are doing decoction mashes on, it's, kind of just that like rounder, bready, crackery character.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's, it's nice. If you can do it, for sure. Super nice. And character lens.
One of the beers that works best on, which I think would surprise some people maybe, because it works wonderful on a Hefeweizen, and I think it's one of the things that makes our Hef so just a touch different than on some other people's is because of that, the decoction on it. And you get that. We can do the acid rest, so we go in at uric acid temperature. It's like 112, and then so you'll produce some of those phenolics from the malt that'll be kicked off with the Hefeweizen yeast.
So this beer, we were talking. You said you were using an American yeast strain.
Mm-hmm.
Is this like your classic, like Chico?
Yeah, it's Chico.
USO,
Yeah, Chico. 05. Yeah. It's Apex. It's San Diego is what they're calling it. But I talked to the Apex's rep or whatever, and they said yes, it's Chico. So and it seems like it acts like Chico. So
I believe him. I think everybody kind of putting up that like West Coast IPA yeast strain. It's all like a derivative of like just that like Chico. 01 originator, and then everybody's kind of like cropped off there and done their thing with it. And that's
thanks to Sierra Nevada, we have that yeast.
Yeah, and that's the bulk of our uses as far as ale strains go is almost exclusively 05. We use the dry variant because of its convenience.
Yeah, we repitched, but this was dry. We started dry. This is probably maybe third gen on this one, but
so it's like I will repitch that strain out, several generations. When I can.
Yeah, it's super reliable.
The funny thing is, though, is like I find because of the price point on it and everything else, is I don't feel like I have to necessarily crop and repitch all the time.
Yeah, if you spend $800 on a pitch, you want to keep that running.
Right, and that's the trouble I was running into when I was using a lot of like the White Labs stuff, or the YE stuff is like, man, these pitches are so expensive. Like, I have to find a way to
you got
string these out and reuse them as much as is possible because the price point to entry on it was so much. But now, for a little while there, people were like, you can't really repitch dry yeast so much or whatever. I started doing it immediately.
Yeah,
I was like, it makes no sense that you wouldn't be able to repitch it if it's an active culture and it's going. It's like, take a look under a microscope, everything looks good.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's measure it out, we'll repitch it and see how it goes, and that's keep going. I see no reason to not use a dry strain to start. If you've got a reputable yeast company and you know that they're putting out decent stuff.
Yeah, we run a lager strain all year, and that is it's kind of a different lager strain than most brewers use, so that kind of gives us some of our unique character, I think, too. So it's the Augustiner strain, and we get it from Omega. But we buy a pitch of that. We usually can run it about a whole year.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad.
Yeah, and that's on,
probably doing what most other places are. I'm a 3470 guy,
Yeah, exactly.
like, because of how clean.
It makes a wonderful beer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so clean and neutral.
Yep.
And it's easy to work with. That's just straight.
Yep.
I've been using it for several years at this point to knock out lager beers. We'll get on to we're talking about hops here. We already touched on what's in these beers. I know a lot of people do dry hopping rates and different manners.
Yeah.
Are you a through the boil hopper, or are you more like I'm kind of a I do my initial hit of bittering hops, and then everything else is late hopping, so it's all kind of like bittering hops, and then everything in whirlpool and dry hopping.
Yeah, so we're a little different, like on this beer especially. So this beer gets first wort hop, which is how we mostly hop at all of our beer, actually, generally. That's what we do here. But first wort hop, bittering charge, which, and again, it's a West Coast, so it's pretty firm. And then we'll do a 10-minute addition because it's a West Coast. Like our New Englands, we usually don't do that in our New England style. So we'll just do a bittering charge and then a whirlpool charge. So 10-minute, and then a pretty good-sized whirlpool addition. And then this is a double dry hop beer. I think you get a little more out of the double dry hop aroma-wise. So we'll do like about a third of the dry hop in the first dry hop at like day 7, and then we'll drop that off at day 10, and then we'll do the 2/3 of that hop bill on that second dry hop, and then we'll recirculate that.
Yeah,
we'll let it bloom for a day, recirculate it, and then another day after that, cool it, and we're ready to go.
Sure.
And then it's condition.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're gonna move into some less beer-focused questions.
Oh boy,
I know it's probably difficult for you at this point because you're still working fire department and here. Mostly I ask people, I'm like, do you have any other hobbies outside of brewing these days?
Yeah, I mean, I used to bike race a bunch. I did that for a bunch of years before we got the brewery. And I was skinny then, and now I'm fat and a brewer because I don't get to ride and I drink a lot of beer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I can, I get to ride. I love riding mountain bikes, especially. Nice. So, and then my boy's getting old enough to ride now, so we're gonna be doing that this summer if it ever gets above 40 degrees here.
Yeah, I think we'll get there. It's we had a bit of a false start to spring.
Yep,
and now it's snowing and raining again today.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of back to like gloomy Ohio.
Right.
But yeah, someday. And that's when I was on the fire department. I kind of was doing like I did a lot of running still.
Yeah.
Running and weightlifting, and
after
I started working at the brewery, that all went away, and I was just like getting fat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know you cook a lot, so and it's delicious. So that could be it.
Too. That started at the firehouse.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
I know that I would assume that this beer is a probably forced carbonated beer. Are you doing any spunding on your pilsners?
We spun everything.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So this is naturally carbonated.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we dry hop under pressure.
Yeah.
So that's why we do this, and the main reason is because we had a couple times of dry hopping where we hit the wall and ceiling, and bad things happen. And luckily, no one fell off of a ladder or anything, and we just lost some beer. But it's much safer. So if you can do that and you're a brewer, I recommend trying to do it under pressure with a device of some sort. Yeah. We have a hop doser. So
we've all seen the videos of down water, dosing hops in a tank, and then it just exploding out of there because all those hops hit nucleation points.
Yep.
And just
you do that once, and then you might think about doing it a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I still know lots of my friends that are brewers that still do it that way, and it's just sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a different end. I usually let my IPA, like anything I'm dry hopping, like ferment out completely.
Yeah.
And then I'm dry hopping so that I'm not hitting those, nucleation points and upsetting things in the tank.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people are, big into like bio transformation, and so they're dry hopping earlier. And that's like, man, I don't know, with all that activity going on.
It gets sketchy.
But if you have devices to do it under pressure or dose it outside of opening the tank and dumping stuff in, that's the way to go.
Yeah, we like that. I think it makes the carbonation better. There's always arguments both ways, but and we use less CO2. That's for sure. Because we've noticed that with our CO2 usage.
Yeah.
So we cut it down. We cut it down some. So
yeah, and that's a nice thing too. Is like I like when I'm doing a spunted beer, which is usually just the lagers that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. It is nice to save on that CO2, and then like all you're doing is just like touching up pressure every once in a while to like maintain that head pressure so that you're capturing it all. Yep. And you just save so much CO2 that way.
And it's better for the beer. It beats it up less, I think.
Yeah, and you're getting a finer carbonation and something that's a little more delicate and refined, and you get that nice like pillowy, not chunky head. And so, I mean, whenever you can, that's, I think, the way to go.
I'm like a big process guy, so I like to try to, like, throughout this journey of brewing, it's figuring out, like, the best way to do things, and that's one of the things I enjoy most, I think.
Yeah, I'm same, and I think a lot of brewers are that way, where you're just, like, constantly, interested and infatuated with the process and the science, and just, like, how can I do this better? How can I refine this thing that I'm doing? How can I make it tighter and more consistent?
Yep.
And I think that's kind of the fun, like, once you get past that point of, like, I'm making beer.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm making beer to get people drunk, and it's a fun thing.
Right.
You get to a certain point, especially the longer you go in this career, where you get more proud about the refinement and, how well can I consistently make this beer that I'm making and, like, make it so that it's better each time. And, like, I think that's a lot of the fun of it at this point for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like...
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, too. Yeah. Like I said, we've done tons of different beers, but really, like, honing in and, like, getting the... like, and it takes a while for everybody as a brewer to get the beers and then get them dialed in. Like, the more times you brew something, I think, like you just said, you're going to tweak something that may or just need the tiniest detail, and it might be, and that's what makes the beer better. Like, you just get it more dialed in.
So I'm going to talk about, because, we are drinking a clear IPA. Well, I was, and now it's almost empty. But, so we talk about, there's a little bit of a difference, I think, in as far as your palate goes on a beer like this versus, beers that are left to be hazy and that kind of stuff. There is a flavor trade-off, I feel, where if I'm drinking a hazy IPA and it's my own palate, because I understand that's the thing a lot of people like.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've been able to really hone in on. Like, I always feel like when I'm drinking hazies a lot of the time, there's some palate fatigue involved, where it's just like you get this like upfront punch of hops, but then to me, it always feels like there's a bit of a chalky, aspiriny character to it on the back end that is unpleasant for me. When I drink something like a West Coast IPA, I don't get it's like, you get that palate cleansing wash on the back end where it's
makes you want to have another sip.
You want to have more. And it's not like I don't feel like, I'm so burnt on drinking this that I got to move on to something else.
Right.
It's, there's always that like clean up at the end where like if you're having a nice clean dry IPA, where it's like you take that sip, and even with something with as much character as this, that you want to take another sip in the next minute. I'm kind of the opinion that that's kind of the goal I'm searching at. Is I want people to come back to something again and again.
So we make our hazy IPAs, and our hazy IPA is our best-selling beer, Henry. Yeah. It's a 6% New England style hazy IPA, but so the thing that I think that you need to be an IPA, so it needs enough bitterness to make it drinkable. And like, regardless if it's a West Coast or a hazy or a New England, whatever you want to call it, whatever kind of IPA it is, it needs some bitterness. And so all of our beers that we make have at least enough bitterness to make it pretty drinkable. And our hazy's probably finished a little bit drier than other people's for the most part, probably, especially Henry. Henry's pretty dry because it's not a huge beer. It only starts at 14 Plato, so it's not a big high gravity beer. But so I think that makes it drinkable. But I tend to agree with you. I think sometimes the New Englands can end up being too sweet, and then it's cloying kind of, and then you don't want to drink anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of.
And as a brewer, that's not what I want to do for my customer either. Yeah. I want them to have another sip, you know? You want them
you want them to keep going.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I want you to drink, you know, if you're coming to my place, especially our spot where we're out in the middle of nowhere, it's like, I want you to feel compelled to have more than one beer while you're there.
Yeah. Yep.
So a lot of the time the goal is like, I want you to have something a little bit drier, something a little easier to drink, but, you know, obviously we all have to offer kind of a spectrum of things. We're kind of getting to the end here. I've got a couple more things. I know that you're still Akron firefighter.
I am.
Been there how long now?
This is 24.
24, so you're getting close to the end.
Yes.
You do a drop program?
No, I'm going to drop out at 25.
Perfect.
That's plan.
Good for you, bud.
Yeah. So I've got about a year and a half left. So.
Yeah, not too much longer.
I'm excited.
Did you have any other careers in mind prior to brewing and firefighting?
Yes.
You thought were compelling?
Yes. So I went to college to be a basketball coach.
Wow.
So I did that. I coached basketball for probably, let's see, if I count through college, so I probably coached like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
I did that when I first got on the fire department job. Then I started racing bikes more, and then that's when I didn't coach basketball and race bikes and worked at the fire department. And then obviously we got into home brewing, and now we're kind of So But I did coach cycling forever too. So I had my own company, my own coaching company with one of my friends. So we did that for about 10 years together. So that was kind of my first like business that I got into.
Yeah, wow, that's wild.
So it was like personal training.
So it's always funny because like it's fun to talk to like brewers about their other careers they were involved in or aspirations, because this is typically not like a first career choice among people.
Right.
It's kind of something that people get into because they're like, oh, I like beer, and I get into home brewing or whatever, and then go from there.
Right.
But it's always funny too with firemen, because like everybody's usually got a B job or something else they're doing on the side.
Yeah, if you don't have 2 jobs and you're a fireman, you're not doing it right.
Right, yeah.
Really, pretty much.
Yeah, because it's like missed opportunity. You have a little bit of downtime between shifts, and it's like if you can earn a little more here and there, go do something else.
Right.
So it's always fun to find out what other firemen.
What did you do? I know you were in the military. So
that was so. I mean, I had a slew of jobs before the military. You know, growing up, I did a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I worked construction too.
Yeah, and that was I worked at a farm store. I worked at a telemarketer. I worked at a pet store, bowling alley. Whatever. And then I went in the Army, and I was a medic there for the 4 years I was in with the infantry unit. And deployed a couple of times to Iraq, and then it was got out of the military, and it seemed like an obvious thing to keep on in sort of a medical career or whatever. So I worked at a hospital for a year after I got out of the military. I worked at the Shands Hospital on the University of Florida campus.
Oh, wow.
For a year there. And then I moved back up to Ohio, got on Alliance Fire Department. I was a firefighter EMT there for a decade. Then got brewing in the meantime.
Here we are.
And so here we are.
Right.
It's been a cavalcade of things,
Yeah, for sure. So as a brewer, this is the best thing for people that want to be a brewer. The best thing about brewing is all the other things that you have to do.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Is like it takes, and so that's kind of, everything else I've done in my life until I was a brewer all kind of helped out in the brewing because you get from the military. For me, it was like extreme attention to detail.
Yep.
And like being very methodical.
Yep.
And like getting into like process and that stuff, and just being like crazy anal retentive about the things I was doing.
Yep.
And then, like, also from the military and firefighting, it's just like that determination of like,
Yeah, we're gonna do it.
yeah, like we're doing this.
Yeah.
Like there's no giving up, there's no quitting.
No.
It's like,
And in firefighting, the mechanical ability, right? So you got to know how things work, and everything that you have in a brewery, at some point, it's going to break. So you have to be able to fix it.
Well, that's the thing is like people don't understand how much firefighters need to know about a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Because of all the facets of like industry, construction, everything else that you need to know in order to be a good firefighter.
Right.
And
do it as safe as you can.
Do it as safe as you possibly can. And it's like, so you have to have the know-how of all this stuff, electrical equipment, construction stuff, how things are built and made, and have a know-how of how things work as a baseline so that you can do the interventions necessary to, take care of a problem.
Yep.
And that works perfectly kind of into a brewery where it's like, I've got this inherent amount of problem solving.
Right.
Where I am not shy about tearing something apart to figure out how it works, how I need to fix it, and get it back together to get it in running order.
Right.
That you absolutely need to have as a brewer.
Yeah. No matter
because a lot of the time, nobody is coming to fix your shit for you.
No.
Nope. Nobody's coming to help you out with, pump goes down on a brew day.
Got to make it work.
Nobody's coming to help you.
No.
Like, you got to be able to tear that pump apart, replace gaskets, put new parts in place, and get it back up and running so you can finish your day.
Yep.
And that's, a lot of people don't understand that aspect of these kind of jobs where it's like, there's not somebody I can just call to be here a lot of the time.
No.
For certain things.
But
on a day-to-day, it's like a lot of problem solving.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Things go wrong, they're getting a hold of you. Like, hey, this draft line isn't working, or
fix it.
not tasting correctly, or something's going wrong. You got to know how to fix it. Moving on, and this is going to be kind of our last portion here. And this is what I've been closing the last several with. Lemmy from Motorhead sort of famously said when he was asked what they brought to heavy music, and he responded with, "Nothing. We didn't bring anything to heavy music. All we did was we took away pretentious musicianship, the outlandish outfits, and we brought what we thought was real and true." What do you think you've brought to craft brewing, or what do you hope to bring to craft brewing?
I think I said it right when we started. I want to make beer-flavored beer.
Yeah.
So I want to make beer that tastes like beer. Beer's been around for, 10,000 years probably,
at least,
right?
Yeah,
so I want it to be around for 10,000 more, and I want it to taste like beer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hell yeah, Shawn.
Yeah,
cheers, man.
Cheers.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for this deliciousness. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming down. It's good to hang out, man. We got to get together more often.
For sure. All right, brother. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sweet.